podcast. This episode being live streamed on YouTube and Twitter, and obviously the recording is going to go up on podcast. Bad day at the office yesterday, in a week that Michael Parkinson sadly passed. I mean, all of us on this podcast, we're all over 50, and I think anybody who is over 50, Michael Parkinson or the Michael Parkinson Show has been part of the tapestry of our lives, I would say. So I had the pleasure of meeting him once, only to shake his hand and said what a fine chap he was. And I mean, yesterday's performance, and I'll carry on the Parkinson link here, yesterday's performance was as bad as Michael Parkinson's infamous interview with Meg Ryan. And if anybody's not seen that, it was an interviewer's nightmare. So RIP Michael Parkinson. I'm joined by Neil, Ian and Mark. Neil, I'll start with you. Is that a good comparison? It was as rank as Parkinson's interview with Meg Ryan. What did you think?
Well, I don't think, I mean, we've seen a lot worse performances, I have to say, but it's the type of performance that has been coming for a while. I mean, in some ways, it's the worst performance at home since probably West Brom Boxing Day last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With regards to it, but it's been coming, David. It's been coming. I don't think we've finished last season particularly well. Creativity that we'll come to has been a problem, and we haven't started the way that we wanted to this season, and that's been a real disappointment to a lot of people. There was a lot of people that had high hopes. There's another big crowd, and 3 shots in 3 games in total, 2 of which are goals, and they came from long throws. The goals more luck than skill.
Yeah.
Really, if Nigel there is saying during the week, we need the crowd to get behind us, you have to do something to actually entertain the crowd, because the way we're playing at the moment is tepid.
All right.
Really.
Okay. That's your view. Ian, Nigel turns 60 tomorrow. It wasn't the sort of birthday weekend performance he would have liked. I mean, there was all the build-up for Section 82 with their flags, but it was flat from the get-go yesterday, wasn't it, Ian?
Yes, it was. But it's how we play. There is a lack of tempo, and that's caused by Williams and James in a double pivot. That doesn't work, particularly at home. We need to play with 2 strikers. The coaches, I don't know what they do during the week. And I'd say the same if they were on this call. We play long balls, high balls to small strikers. Now, that is pointless. Somebody said to me yesterday, well, Barcelona played with a bloke up front who was 5'4". Yeah, but they didn't kick it over his head. If you play with a small team, we're a really small team. You take Dickey out and possibly Zach Viner, take the defence out. It's a small team.
It was almost modelled in the image of Lee Johnson, because he got accused of having a small team. But you're right.
Nobody in the midfield's over 6 foot. Nobody in the forward line. I don't think Cornick's over 6 foot, and if he is, he don't jump like it. What an awful signing that's been. Sorry, I've got to say it. It was something that if you can't see what's wrong in that game, and as somebody said on Radio Bristol last night, it was a really good advertisement for recruitment, because if Steve Lansdowne doesn't want to free up money or too much money from the Alex Scott transfer, then he should consider what happens if we finish lower than we did last season and get ourselves in a relegation spot and relegated. So no low tempo. We're fit enough. We've got enough energy. That's not the problem. The big problem is lack of physicality, and in some cases, downright weakness.
Okay. Mark, what do you think? I mean, I heard you on Radio Bristol last night. You made some good points. Ian's used tempo, physicality, says we're fit. I mean, again, from the get-go, that's not my favourite buzz phrase. I've used it twice now in 5 minutes. Birmingham almost had a ball in the back of the net inside 60 minutes. They just seem sharper than us. So what's the matter as you see it, Mark?
Well, I listened to Nigel Pearson's interview again this morning, and he said I'll always back the players, but he doesn't help himself with his team selection, with especially playing Sam Bell central, and the players lack the basic skills in terms of being able to pass the ball, show physicality in the challenge. They don't win the second ball, and they're playing with fear. The players lots of players look isolated. The WSM did well because the three front players played together. Our three are isolated and continually playing crosses into Sam Bell, who doesn't have the presence to beat the first defender, because that isn't his position. Isn't right, but we lack the basic tenets of a good football team. Be able to compete, pass the ball to feet. We couldn't pass with Toffee yesterday. Show any creativity. That's gone with Alex Scott. But I think we just play with fear. And the manager said, I'll back the players. There's clearly a disconnect there between the manager and the players. If the players aren't good enough, as Ian said, that means we got to go out and recruit. We got to go out and recruit players now, because on that display, the first two games, we look very poor. If that's a look into the future, we're going to have a long struggle this season.
It's got to be more of the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Neil, back to you with the team selection. It almost picks itself. And I said, picking up on Mark's comment about Pearson, I mean, yesterday's body language, he's got up out of his seat about 3 times the whole game. I didn't see anybody egging the team on. But one of the questions he was asked, why did you pick a front three of Cornick, Bell and Mehmeti? And I say, we're going to talk about team selection with each of you. But Cornick, Bell and Mehmeti, his response was, because I can, which was one of those terse, said in the tone of you're an ostrich type comments by Pearson. He ain't happy, but what did you think of the team selection? Because realistically, he didn't even name a full bench, did he?
He didn't. For me, are you almost keeping Cornick in the side for his long throws? I don't know, because I mean that's where 2/3 of the goals have come from this year, isn't it? Yeah. You're literally keeping him in for those long throws.
Well, otherwise,
I can't.
Decent balling, can't he?
Yeah, I mean the difference with those long throws has actually been the aerial presence of Dickie. Dickie's made a difference in those long throws as a focal point, and obviously that's where the goal at home to Preston and the goal away at Millwall have come from. But I think realistically, Mehmeti looked like he's been told not to do the things that he did when he first turned up. I mean, I went away to Sunderland last year. That first half at Sunderland, he was jinxing, he was overstepping, he was being allowed to play with a certain amount of freedom. Now he seems like he's been told, no, that's not how we do things here. This is the way I want you to play. And he's having to adapt. Pring isn't getting forward, and I know that Nigel spoke about both the fullbacks not coming into play, but Pring, either his fitness levels, I know we spoke in a previous podcast that he takes a little bit of while to get that fitness level up, but he was bombing up and down the wing at, second half of the season last year.
Or cutting inside as well. Yeah,
but cutting inside, against Preston, they just double and treble teamed him. It was obvious what was happening. Whether or not, I don't know. None of the fullbacks. Tanner, they give him about 15 yards because they know he's not going to do anything with it. It reminds me a little bit of Jack Hunt at right back when he used to get the ball and there would be nobody within about 15, 20 yards of him and nobody would press him because it was like, well, we know you're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah.
So there seems a disconnect between Tanner and Cornick on the right-hand side, playing Sam down the middle. I mean, come on, please. I mean, it makes no sense.
You almost say that's an antic, not a tactic, really. Yeah, it's really.
Well, he's obviously looking at the back line. He's looking at someone like Kevin Long in the back and saying, "Oh, well, if we get him turned, or whatever." But really, I mean, he's not that. The Oxford game, David, it ended up with him down the centre, didn't it?
Yeah.
And even against Oxford, you could tell this isn't going to work.
No.
And
I
yet
know we beat Oxford 5-1, but as somebody pointed out on the fans forum, they bossed us for 20 minutes of that game without a shadow of a doubt. You know, we looked pedestrian in that.
Yeah, it was second half when he moved Bell into the centre. But I mean, if you were to ask Bell himself, he'd say my attributes are on the left, really.
Well, I took a fan. I think he's a Wolves fan, actually. My son-in-law, I took him to the game yesterday. And he said, he's not very good. You're number 20, is he? You look like a little boy. Ian, the team, it picks itself. You refer to the James Williams pivot and then Knight playing in front. Naismith, he's one of our best players. You've got, in my view, you've got to play him from the start. Or is he playing him for the last half hour because his fitness levels are questionable, Ian?
Well, both things could be true, couldn't they? I think when we beat Birmingham last year and we played some really good football, we had two strikers and it was Conway and Wells, and we also had Semenyo in the team, and we played through balls. They kept a high line, which they didn't do yesterday, and we played through them, and we can do that if we've got our team, the best team out. But this glib remark about why did you do it because I can, that's all fine if you go out and win the game and prove your point. We didn't at any stage prove our point. So I would say if you're going to keep playing like that, and I hope we don't, you've got 3 forwards that are first choice: Bell, Sykes, Wells. And that's the best of what we've got at the moment.
Yeah,
you haven't got anybody any forward there who can play in a 1, a 4-2-3-1. We don't need, or perhaps we do need, a double pivot at home, but you could try, if you're going to do that, James and Naismith. Away from home, yeah, you can play a double pivot because you can play a lot deeper. They'll come on to you and you can hit them on the break. Okay, you can do that. But I looked at that side yesterday and somebody said to me, well, come on then, what would you do to put it right? And I said I'd make 4 or 5 signings. And
all right, well, we come on to signings when we talk.
Well, apart from a goalkeeper, they would all go straight in the team.
Yeah, but then we've got players that are injured. It's the curse of the high hamstring probability centre that we have got players that are injured that would go in that team if they were fit. And I'm including Eamon Benarous in that because he's probably better potentially on the left than Mehmeti is at the moment. Mark, the team sort of picked itself, didn't name a full bench, used 5 of the 8 subs yesterday, but Ian's alluded, and Neil, or certainly Neil, Pring, he does look out of sorts, doesn't he? I wouldn't be surprised to see Roberts start against Hull on Friday.
Dave, can I come in on Cam Pring?
Yeah.
What you've got to remember is if Cam Pring goes storming on up the line, we've got absolutely nobody in the team who can give him the ball. And he's caught out of position. And it's the same with George Tanner. They cannot get caught too high up the pitch because otherwise the other team would just put the ball where they should be.
They should be in the hole
and they'll be away.
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming the individual players. I take your point on Cam Pring. He's not looking as dynamic, but sides have sussed him out. And that's what happens in your second season.
All right, Mark,
coming through.
Getting back on that starting lineup, do you agree with me that Naismith should start? And do you think Pring's position is in jeopardy now? Because although Roberts wasn't great yesterday when he came on, his distribution was poor. He does have a lot of energy about him. So those 2 points, Naismith starter and Roberts in on Friday.
Well, I think Pring can start, but it's left centre back because Dickie's going to be out. I don't see why. Yeah. I don't see why. I mean, he played there at the end of last season because of injuries. So I don't see why he shouldn't play left centre back instead of Naismith. I hope to God that Naismith doesn't play left centre back. As a last man, that was a calamity last season when he played in the centre of a back three and a complete waste of his talents. I think the reason he's not starting is there must be doubts over his full match fitness. I mean, he missed nearly half the games last season through injury. you know, that's not good enough. You can't. He probably is the best passer of the ball in the side, but you can't build a team around a player who's only going to give you 20 free matches a season. You need another player who can play in the hole and make passes, because you take Alex Scott out and you're missing all that. The other thing is, you take Antoine Semenyo out. Very difficult to replace a player of his quality, but when it's tight, there's no way that Mehmeti can get himself out of tight situations. Semenyo could do that with his back to goal. We haven't got a player that does that either. So we're missing the quality of those players that have gone. We haven't replaced that. You know, being able to hold the ball to stick up front when we do get the ball in high positions, it bounces off of us. And that's the reason we've only had. I mean, it's actually, Neil, it's 4 shots on target we had. Apparently, we had 2 against Preston, so it's only very slightly better.
4 shots on target in 3 games.
In 3 games, that's pathetic.
It's not good. And there's at least
where's the 4? Where's the 4?
I don't know. It must have been a grass cutter back to the keeper.
So two against Preston, one against Mill.
No,
and none yesterday.
Sorry, 3. Yeah, sorry, there's your 3.
Well, that's one a game. That's one a game. At least we're consistent.
Sorry, I thought we had one
yesterday. If anybody saw it against,
good.
Wasn't going to last, but he well nigh thumped that in, and I liked his little somersault afterwards. I thought he put on a bit of timber. Actually, I mean, did the ground move? Certainly did at Anfield when he hit the deck after that. But all right,
things are desperate when things are always desperate when we're lauding players that we've left us.
I know.
That's how desperate we are, isn't it? Sorry, Neil, just talked myself into a hole there, haven't I?
Yeah. As I said right at the start, I mean, Blues, as they're affectionately known. And I hate this idea when you've got 3,000 supporters at one end of the ground. Something's got to be done about that, because I know our fans were muted yesterday, but God, they were making a hell of a lot of noise, and it does lift the team. I think we had one shot over from Jason Knight. We'll talk more about him later on. But come to each of you for the goal, which Nigel Pearson said somebody didn't do their job. I thought when you see somebody volley in like that, it was good goal if you're a neutral. And Max had done the save just before, but take me through the goal. You first, Neil. How did you see it? Because we should have been managing the game to 0-0 at half time, and we sort of, I would say we were worth 0-0, but on a boxing match on points, you probably would have given it to Birmingham. But then just before the bloody break, they're 1-0 up. Take us through the goal, and I'll do the same for each of you. I
think that Miyoshi, who came on, actually made a huge difference for Birmingham. Actually, it was one of those ones where you look at substitutions. He obviously came on for Ethan Laird, who obviously went off for an injury, and I think he changed the dynamic somewhat for Birmingham in particularly in that sort of 5 minutes just before half time, because he had the shot that Williams cleared off the line, and Max. Yeah, we can talk about Max to the cows come home, really. I mean, he doesn't give you an assurity, does he? Really, with regards to crosses. It was a hell of a finish, Dave. Great finish. I mean, the ball's come in, we've half cleared it, and he's hit it on the volley right into the top corner. Nothing Max could do on that. It's a killer blow just before half time, but then we've been doing that to a few teams at the end of last season, didn't we?
Yeah, we've had about 8 last-minute goals.
The 47 minutes and the 46 minutes and all the rest of it. We've been hitting teams, and I think sometimes there is an element of, the board goes up and teams go, all right, we'll just sit out to half time, and you step off a little bit. And I think we're a bit guilty of that yesterday.
Certainly.
The board went up and we sort of stepped off a little bit. Right, let's just get into half time. We know it's not great. We know we haven't played well. We know what's coming with regards to a bit of a ear bashing, and the concentration went. It all became a bit slack for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And that culminated in the goal, didn't it, really?
Yes, you're right. I mean, Ian, who do you think Nigel was alluding to when he said somebody didn't do their job? And we all talk about physicality. He was the shortest player on the pitch. Miyoshi. Is it Miyoshi? He sounds like a cheap aftershave that you buy in an airport departure lounge, doesn't it? Issy Miyoshi. But who was to blame, if anybody was to blame?
Well, whoever was meant to be marking him.
Who would that have been?
Sorry?
Who do you think should have been marking him? I don't know if you've watched the goal back, but
Yeah. Well, I don't know who should be marking him. I mean, you sort all that out on the training ground. You know, the bloke that should have been marking him would have been a bloke that was marking Laird if he was in the same position. So, yes, it was a good volley, but he was completely unmarked. What was he, 10 12 yards out?
Yeah.
So, sides 10, and I've watched a lot of it. I watched the Forest game the other night. They played Sheffield United, and Hamer scored an absolute perler from the edge of the box. But he was in about 6 yards of space when he got the ball. And you're almost encouraging somebody to shoot. Now, the difference is the higher you go up the leagues, the more chance there is they're going to hit the target with the shot and score a goal.
Yeah.
So it was poor marking. It was poor defending. Everything about us yesterday, you couldn't point to any department of the team and say, yeah, that was okay. Because it just wasn't.
No.
It was our passing was poor. Our distribution was dreadful. O'Leary's distribution was dreadful. If anybody was watching Zach Viner and going to get a bid ready for him, I think he probably talked him out of it yesterday, because that was his distribution was the number of times we got picked off trying to go across the pitch and trying to go into feet. At least he was trying to go into feet.
That's the thing, Ian. At least he was trying, because the other midfielders were, we were doing, as you said, tippy tappy.
It's all right having 65% of possession, but it's what you do with it.
Correct.
Now, if the team weren't fit, you wouldn't have 65% possession. So they're fit. There's not a problem with fitness, but there is a problem with physicality. And unless we go out and get some players that have that, you look at their two holders in midfield. What was it? Who they got? And Darby and the other lad. They were units, and it was easy for them to play.
Was it Sanderson at the back with the hair? Sanderson, the defender with the hair.
Yeah, I mean, they were units. I mean, okay, we've got two decent-sized central defenders. Pring and Tanner aren't midgets, but when you start moving forward from that, there's just a lack of.
Well, that's it, Ian. That's it. I mean, for me,
the ball never sticks up front.
No, I mean, for me, the back four, and I know Dickey got himself sent off yesterday, but that is the only bit of that's the only bit of the team that is, as you said, half decent. And as you say, Viner let himself down yesterday with distribution. Dickey was running forward, but there was no real end product. Mark, just to wrap up the first half, the goal, Ian sort of didn't particularly blame an individual, but the shortest player on the pitch, unmarked, 10 yards out. And, it was a worldly finish. But again, as Ian said, at this level, they're more likely to go in, whereas in League 1 and 2, there's probably going to be 4 out of 10 will go in. What did you think?
Yeah, Anderson took the corner, out swinger. Cornick goes up with Hogan, and Hogan heads it against Cornick's head. That's why it goes back to Miyoshi. But yeah, it was completely unmarked. Outside outside the 6-yard box to the right, and it was a sweet volley. But yet there was nobody marking him. He was there at the back post. It was a great finish, but nobody marking him at all.
And just to confirm, Mark, he was in the penalty area.
That's right. It was in the penalty area. He was just stepped back from the 6-yard box. And he just followed it straight at the near post. Nobody marking him at all. As bad as Millwall's marking was against James last week, completely free to put a volley in the back of the net. That was where the problem is. Cornick did his best. It was just a freak ball back to Miyoshi. But yeah, you've got to have a player marking him. They've got to do their job. They were all at the front post, apart from Cornick and Hogan, and it was a back post, and it was a mess.
Okay,
you can't do
that. You go in 1-0 down, and you think, you can give them a good talking to. They came out, it was a bit pedestrian again. I mean, and the next incident I want to discuss, Neil, with each of you, is the sending off incident. I thought the referee was piss poor yesterday, to be quite honest. Some of it, and again, I thought there was more minutes to add on. If we're in this new regime, I thought there should have been some more minutes added on, although I left 3 minutes after the 3 minutes into the 6 that was added on at the end. But Dickie sending off, second yellow card, bit silly, and Nigel didn't put his arm around his shoulder or anything. But, do you think Dickie's old enough to know better?
Who were you addressing that to, Dave? To myself?
You, Neil. Yeah, you, Neil.
Well, it was a stupid descent in the first half, wasn't it? And then you're walking a tightrope at the end of the day. He blocked the guy off rather than actually sort of tackled him that second half. The second yellow, but the first yellow wasn't even his challenge. He's arguing about his Williams tackle. He's given a decision against him and he's got involved and got a stupid booking for a descent. And if you're a centre back and you get a booking, what was it, about 38 minutes or something like that? Yeah. Then, and then there's frustration, isn't there? In the second half, they're all professionals on the pitch. They know that nothing's happening. They know, and we've spoken before, David, about the fact that how many times in the last few seasons when City have gone 1-0 down, have we actually gone on, got back in and won a game?
Yeah.
I can think about once, maybe, when a side goes ahead against us and then they just put the players back, they deny us the space. The only time yesterday where we got any space is when Naismith got in the centre midfield and was able to thread that ball through to Bell that we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
Other than that, realistically, we didn't have anything in that centre that could actually thread a ball through or play the way that we want to play. And you're looking for differentials as players. And differentials as players are Semenyo, Scott, and possibly Conway. And for those three not to be on the pitch for different reasons, obviously, without those three, I don't see too many differentials.
No, I agree.
I don't see a player who's suddenly going to make something happen.
Affect the game, as Gary Johnson used to say.
Yeah,
they sucked with Mehmeti. They sucked the flair out of him in the same way that we seem to do out of Hanno Masengo after those early season performances when he.
Well, I think there is a certain amount with Mehmeti when he first came. And he's just raw product, just out of non-league a couple of years beforehand. And it's a huge step up in quality from League One to the Championship. We know that. Anybody who went to the Oxford game would have seen the difference in quality between a Championship side and a League One side. Mm. And he's come from a League One side where he does things really, really well.
Yeah.
What we haven't done so far, now that he's played, 25 games for us, maybe something like that. What we haven't done is looked at what he did well and improve on that to a Championship standard.
No, you're right.
We've taken him and we've tried to mold him into our way of playing, but our way of playing is a negative. Unfortunately, it's a negative way. When he first came, I didn't see too many. He'd be willing to take players on. That's what the crowd wants to see.
That Nigel wanted. I want to move on because I'm conscious you've got a hard stop at some point, Neil, and there's more to talk about after the game in terms of the last, what's in store for the next. It's 12 days left in the transfer window. So now, Ian, very quickly on the sending off. I mean, Dickie should know better. And then Max, and I want to pick up on this as well. Max did a good save to sort of balance out some of the bad stuff. So the Dickie sending off and that save from Max on 71 from James. He got down well. That's two. He denied them 2 goals today, but those 2 incidents, as you saw them, Ian.
Yeah, well, there was a far post one in the first half that he saved it almost point blank range.
Yeah, remember
that one later on. Dickie, the sending off, moronic. The gobbing to referees is a yellow card. So Williams and Dickie decided to do it. 2 players who've played hundreds and hundreds of games of league football, and the 2 of them did it. Moronic. For me, that would be a £2,000 club fine for both of them. I don't know what the disciplinary fines are, but it shows a lack of discipline and it shows a stupidity. Now, you can put it down to frustration, but basically for years, they've been shouting and bawling and screaming at referees, and the hierarchy have said, really sorry, but we've had enough. So you approach a referee, you crowd a referee, you're going to get a yellow card. And what happens is you get a yellow card early in the game and you are then on a tightrope.
Yeah.
If you can't, I mean, God knows how many times Vyman is going to get booked this season, because if you take 90% of his bookings are for gob. So the manager, coaches should be saying to them, shut up. All right. It's no good you shouting and bawling and calling the referee one of these or one of those. He's not going to say, do you know what, Rob, you've got a point there. I'll change my mind. Joe, you're not booked anymore, but look, don't do it again. It's not going to happen.
No.
So and I don't expect it. If it was a kid, you might think, well, yeah, that's a lack of experience, possibly a lack of being a grown-up, because we've got some young lads playing for us now that are 17. And it's 17. I didn't have any discipline. So when I look at that, I think, yeah, you're frustrated. You're frustrated at yourself. You're frustrated at your teammates. Take it out on them, right? Don't say anything to the referee.
Good point, Ian. Good point. Something else somebody said on Radio Bristol. Didn't seem to be any leaders out there. I'm going to.
Do you know what, Dave? I get so fed up with hearing about a lack of leaders. Pearson signed 19 players.
Yeah.
You think just by accident there might be one or two leaders?
Well, maybe Naismith. Maybe Naismith. All right. Okay. I think we've done. Mark, you next. And I'll come to each of you on these two incidents, which then pretty much wraps the game up, which is the Wells miss and their goal. So, Mark, first dibs for you. So I think we've done enough on Dickie's sending off and what have you. Mickey Bell, Sam Bell being criticised too much for sort of trying to check inside and what have you. But the one time he did put in a decent cross, and that's the thing. We're playing with two wide men. Our crosses are appalling. Naki Wells puts that one away 9 times out of 10 normally, doesn't he? Yeah?
Yeah, although look back at his record, he hasn't scored since a penalty against Hull in February, so it's 16 games now without a goal for Naki. So it looks like he's getting
without a goal in 2020 in the 20s since a goal in open play. Well, he's released down. Bell's released down the left, and he had 4 or 5 chances to cross the ball in the second half, but for the majority of the time he was trying to get back on his right foot. He's played an early ball in. Wells has got between Sanderson and Long, and the ball just squirms off his instep. All he has to do is guide it in the net. He's quicker than those two. He's at space between him and Ruddy. He's got it at the target, and it's one more, and it's a get out of jail free card. Because of course Rob Dickie's already been sent off in the 76th minute, so we're 6 minutes after that incident. He's got to score. It's like that. When Gordon Smith missed that chance at Brighton, Wells must score. And it's awful again,
that we didn't.
They say in the Championship it's fine margins, but if you take better defending in terms of game management at the end of the first half, and that, I'm convinced that I'm convinced as anyone can be. But had they not scored at half time, you don't know what could have happened in the second half. And had we equalised then, I think Birmingham would have been happy for a point.
Well, I think overall we have hung all our hopes on that one chance in the game, because we were that poor. We only had one clear-cut chance. So we're talking about that, bleary-eyed, thinking, we missed that chance, we would have got a result. We only had that chance. And because of, we talked about the Dickie sending off, it's poor discipline all round. It's just poor discipline, inability to do the basics. And that's why we lost the game. Birmingham were better than us all over the pitch. The fact that they didn't win by 2-0, you'll have to ask them. But that's the situation we're in now. Going back to the top of the show, where I said Pearson said he backs the players. At the moment, the players don't look good enough. That's the disconnect between the manager and the players. He's got to get those players fired up. They're not showing any of that attitude on the pitch, no natural ability. And that is going to make life very hard for us going forward. Injuries don't help, but if the players on the pitch can't do the basics and pass the ball, control the ball, show physicality, show creativity, or any talent, then we're not going to do anything.
No, that's
Simple
true.
as that.
Neil got if Wales puts that in, odds on. My scoreline predict. Obviously, I always want City to win, but somebody said to me, "What do you think?" before the game. I said, "I think it's going to be a 1-1." I think it's going. I actually thought it was going to be a 1-1 draw. But if that goes in, likely to stay that, isn't it? Wouldn't you think?
Well, I don't know because it goes in, and then to Birmingham go just step up another gear again, a little bit like Preston did against us. When they're defending a 1-0 lead and they're playing with inside themselves and they're playing against 10 men, and it's like we don't have to force the issue. They would have been happy for the 1-0 there. So they're playing with inside themselves. The onus is on us to do something because we're the losing side. We're not capable of doing anything. We have our default 1 chance per game, which we don't take. If we had taken that, would we get Birmingham then step up? It looked to me that Birmingham potentially had another gear. I think the fact that they went on and actually scored a second is probably a bit of a wake-up call from them with regards to the fact that if they leave it at 1-0, there's always a chance that we might get a 93rd minute equaliser or something like that. So I think as a team, they were probably told by Eustace on the sidelines, right, we just need to push now, get that second, then we'll be a lot more comfortable. Rather than, the 1-0, there's always the potential for a Sam Bell skip away and a late equaliser from us that would have really given us a goal that, quite frankly, we didn't deserve.
Yeah. Okay. Ian, the Wells miss, as you say, 1 goal from him in open play in 20 games. Djukovic, he's just the sort of player that we need, really, isn't he? Yeah, because he's always, I think he got a last minute or 90-minute plus winner against Leeds, and he's a unit, yeah, and he tucked it away with aplomb, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, Djukovic, the Leeds goal was a penalty.
Was it? Right, okay.
In the last minute. Djukovic, he very rarely starts games, which points to me that there's a problem with him being able to last 90 minutes. The frustrating thing for me with the Nahki Wells situation, with missing that, which, you'd have backed my missus to score from there, was Sam Bell putting a really good low left foot cross. Now, he must have had 7 opportunities to do that in the game, and the other 6 times he pulled it back on his right foot. Cornick did the same in the first half. He was through on the angle, on goal, on his right foot, and he's very right-footed, tried to pull it back on his left. That's lack of confidence. We've seen Sam Bell cross it with his left foot, and it's fine. So why did he keep trying to pull it? That's just lack of faith, lack of confidence, lack of belief, or what Mark, I think, called playing with fear. So, yeah, there's radical changes needed. And if Nigel Pearson can't see that, he needs to sit down with his coaches and have a really good chat, because my prediction is if they don't put it right within 10 games, including the ones we played, and I'm talking about league games, Steve Lansdown's going to have a decision to make.
Well, Ian, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right there. I mean, I think Steve Lansdown's finger is on that trigger, because I don't think there's any love lost between them. And we'll talk about the games coming in a minute. I think we've done the game to death, Mark. But that Djukovic, he's that big striker that we need. I mean, let's start getting into the transfer talk, Mark. I mean, yeah, Ian said we've not got anybody that can play with a 1, but you sort of could try Nahki in a 1. But Mark, do we need, as a priority, a big man up front, Mark?
Yeah, you just need somebody. I mean, if you say big man, everybody automatically thinks somebody, a target man. You need the ball. That ball's going to be played in the air, going to be flinging in crosses. No, it's just somebody who can hold the ball up. We've got nobody who can hold the ball up front. But you need your forwards to play closer together. That's what we're not doing. So we've effectively, we're supposed to be playing with three forwards, but we're not. We're playing with one, because the two wider players are playing basically in the corners on the side of the pitch most of the time, and the other player hasn't got the physical presence. So you need players playing closer together, but you definitely need a stronger player. The problem what we've got, the way that Pearson has talked about it, the parameters, is that we've got a wage limit. It makes it feel that we can't compete on wages at this level. So does that mean we can't buy players at this level? That we're looking down? Are players are there players good enough in League One? Never mind League Two, who could go straight in. We look to sign a midfielder who can't even start for Bolton. Was he going to be good enough? Do we shop? Do we recruit from Europe? Other teams do it and get.
Do we loan? Do we loan?
Well, I mean, it comes back to wages. Players who are going to be good enough to go straight into the team are academy players at Premier League clubs, but they come with a cost. They would have to be substantially subsidised by the loaning club for us to be able to afford them. But bearing in mind the current wage structure, or I don't know. So you're thinking, I'm thinking, who the hell do we bring in that's going to be good enough?
I think Ian said
we're not being upbeat about our chances in the transfer market. I mean, no. Nigel Pearson's not upbeat.
Nigel Pearson's not upbeat about anything.
With the Vyman injury, that's a short-term thing. But with the Conway injury, you've taken all of his goals out of the team. That's a real problem. And the fact that there's that lack of physicality up front, anywhere on the pitch, is a real problem. So you've got issues that need to be addressed. Players have to be signed, but we were almost talking ourselves out of it in terms of our ability to bring players in.
Exactly. Neil, the owner, as he is, that's what he is. Everything stops there. I mean, we've got the invisible man, Phil Alexander, the chief exec, and apparently it was Lansdowne doing all the talking with the Alex Scott because there was a lot of money involved there. But he's sending out some, he did that interview with the Guernsey Post. He almost seems to like battening down the hatches, and our expectations, Ian said for a long time now, Nigel's managed everybody's expectations down. I think most of us going into this season had a sense of optimism. We bought 4 players that seemed half decent. The fact that McCrory's got this mysterious bacterial infection. But Ian's saying we need 4 players that should walk straight into the side. Yet there's only, 12 days left of the transfer window? And a chairman that is being very just obscure, or he's making excuses. Mark's just said, we can't compete on the wages, yet the various tables show that we're, after the parachute clubs, we're one of the better playing teams. As the phrase goes, WTIFGO, what is going on? What are we going to do?
Well, I think there is quite clearly for me something going on behind the scenes. We've got a situation whereby in the summer, Pearson did a lengthy interview where he said there's a plan A and a plan B. The plan A with Alex Scott, the plan B without Alex Scott. We're working on plan A at the moment, but don't worry, we've got plan B. Well, we are into plan B territory now. And Pearson has then said, actually, plan B is now merged with plan A. And we used a load of the plan B money already with the plan A money. And you're like, well, there seems to be a bit of a mixed message there in relation to it, because any fans of another club looking in would be, you've just sold arguably your best player for, a huge amount of money in championship terms. And you're saying, well, we've got constraints, we can't compete. And And other teams, of course, would be saying, what do you mean you can't compete? What do you mean you've got constraints? And this is where I think he's built a team there that he likes to play, he likes the team. But is the team too nice? I mean, Ian's alluded to the physicality side of things. He doesn't want to bring people in that are going to be of a certain character, a certain temperament that you can often get with your loan players. You go back over the years with Pearson and you look at the loan players he's had and the people that he's fallen out with, they've been top players, but they come with an ego, don't they? And that's also the issue with loan players. He's had issues with loan players coming in and being what he considers to be disruptive. So he wants to run a tight ship. He wants players there that almost they can control. They're their players, our players, we can control. There's a control element there with inside the team. You only have to look at what we were just saying about with Mehmeti. This is the Maverick. This is the Maverick that we're bringing in that's going to get us play a bit different. And yet we seem to have controlled him to such a degree that we've sucked that creativity, individuality out of him. And now he's playing as part of the team unit. And we play as part of a team unit. We don't concede a lot. We're solid. We're unremarkable. But all the creativity has been sucked out of the team. The individuality seems to have been sucked out of the team to a certain degree. Now, moving forward with regards to what we do in the next 10 days, David, Lansdowne and Pearson seem to be, there's mixed messages there, isn't there?
Well, there's poles apart. And as you said, I mentioned just a moment ago, the chief executive, we talked about this before, but, he's silent. I'm coming to you in a second, Ian, but it's a bit of a mess. You said things are going on behind the scenes. Ian, what do you think is going on behind the scenes? There was a little rumor, I don't believe it necessarily, a little rumor that Callas is going to sign a 1-year contract after all. Yeah. But what's going on as you see it, Ian?
Well, that would be a typical City thing to do. And he hasn't trained. So we probably wouldn't see him until November. I would say Steve Lansdowne's been trying to sell the club. He can't sell it because of the debt and because of the losses. The money for that we got for Semenyo, part of it, I think, was allocated to sign in, thinking we were going to get it, was allocated to sign Mehmeti and Cornet. And then the other lads that were brought in. Now, in terms of the injured players, Vyman's probably back in the squad for Hull. The other 4, we probably won't see them until Christmas.
Yeah.
So we went out last week and offered £1 million for a guy who's a substitute most weeks for Bolton.
Who lost 4-0 to home to Wigan. Yeah.
Who lost 4-0 at home to Wigan after winning a couple, in which he only made cameo appearances. And that would seem to me like another one of these ones for the future. Well, what we need is ones for now. And for me, if Viner stays, and if we get a decent offer, they'll sell him because he's not going to sign a new contract. We need a goalkeeper, a centre half, a defensive midfield player, a creative central midfield player, and a centre forward who can hold the ball up and play people in. So whether we loan them, the decision Steve Lansdowne's got to make, and it will be Steve Lansdowne, nobody else, he's got to make a decision. Do I get rid of Nigel Pearson and bring in a coach who will get a better tune out of the players we've got? Or do I further fund Nigel Pearson and teams' adventures in the transfer market? Now, bearing in mind that if we do sign, I'll say 5 because I think that's what we need.
Ain't going to happen, Ian. Ain't going to happen.
I didn't say it was going to happen.
But
what we need. That will mean he's then signed 24 players. Now, 5 of those have already left the club, but that'll be 24 players. Now, that means he signed 2 teams, and Nigel Pearson's statement was, I'm not going to bring people in for the sake of it. I'm only going to bring people in that are better than what we've got. So one would assume that he thought Dickey, McCrory, Roberts, who was the other signing?
Knight.
Were better than what we've got or what we had. Okay. Now, I haven't seen McCrory yet, so I can't tell you how good he is. I saw him play for Aberdeen a few times, and he looked decent, and primarily in midfield, I have to say. But without knowing that if you said McCrory's back next week, we possibly wouldn't need another centre back. But whether Zach goes or if Zach goes, we need 2 centre backs.
Yeah.
So, do I think it's going to happen? No. The only other option, I think, somebody spoke to me about, there was a conversation going on last week about the club being sold. Genuinely can't see it for the amount of money that Steve would want for the assets and all the rest of it.
It's a mess.
But if he did, I always say to people, be careful what you wish for, because some clubs have changed. I mean, Birmingham changed ownership. They've gone out and they've got new investors, primarily from America. They signed 6 players.
Well, that's what I was going to say there. There are some clubs without parachute payments that have been out there making, and I haven't looked at the thread for a while. There's a thread on OTIP called Other Clubs Business. Some clubs have been going out there signing players, and you're thinking, that's not a bad signing. And as you've just said, Birmingham had 6 in there. I don't want to go into the detail of which they are, but our recruitment, our star signing, well, two star signings really, was McCrory, who was obviously going to be coming in for where George Tanner's playing, and Knight. Now, whether he thought Knight was going to play alongside Alex Scott, Knight is a shadow of the player that some of us thought we were getting. But, it's this not competing. And
why do you, I'll come back to it. Why do you want to replace George Tanner with Ross McCrory? Is that going to really change how good we are?
Well, I think, I would say that, no, I don't, Ian. I don't know. I think Sykes is as good a defensive right back as what Tanner is when he's played. But let me bring.
Well, but Dave, can I just quickly say that you didn't look at our team yesterday and think, "Oh, we're crying out for a right back." So that's
I did.
We're not crying out for a team. We're not crying out for a right back, right?
More than a centre forward,
right back, but in McCrory, we've got somebody that potentially could be better than Tanner. Yeah, we're crying out for midfielders, but if you look at the midfield that was there yesterday, that midfield. Well, I mean, James, as long as he can walk, he's going to be picked by Nigel, and then Naismith is going to play if he's fit. Knight is a £2 million signing, so McCrory has to come in, and that's the place to put him there. Right, can I just stop you there, Ian? Mark, I just want your piece, and then we'll wrap up in a few moments, just looking forward over the next week. We'll be doing, for those of you that are still listening, we'll be doing a podcast on Saturday morning after the Hull game, and then obviously we'll be doing it on Wednesday morning after the Norwich game. That is being played on a Tuesday. And then on the Swansea away, we'll probably do that Saturday tea time. But Mark, it's, some people say, the bedwetters are out in force at the moment. It's all doom and gloom. There's only 3 games. What's, your expectations have been managed down significantly compared to where they were prior to the Preston game, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's going on around the club. I can't remember when that Lansdowne interview was before or after Alex Scott was sold.
After.
But it was after he was sold. But I mean, he's talking the club up, talking the facilities up and the talent of the squad. Not forgetting that Ross McCrory's out for an unspecified length of time. I don't know if Tommy Conway's details of his injury had been known then. He's out 3 or 4 months. But he seems to think that the squad that was talented enough to compete, almost making you think, well, we don't need to spend money because Nigel Pearson has got the players that are able to compete in this division, insofar as not thinking about the injuries. But we've got injuries, which has ripped it up. So Tommy Conway's injured, for a long period of time. McCrory's out for an unspecified amount of time, and Alex Scott's gone. So it almost made you think, well, I don't need to spend the money. And then you're thinking, well, is he just using that money from the Scott transfer just to pay down the debt?
Well, that's
Almost
what he
going
said.
back.
He said building a little nest egg. That was the sum that he used.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the McGuinness situation from the 2013 season, when his budget was halved and he just went out and got mediocre players with what he had, and the team subsequently got relegated. But with the form that we've shown, which has been poor, and I think we were thinking, I mean, we did enough to beat Millwall last week, but we only had one shot on target. We were knocking on the door, but we didn't show any quality in their penalty area apart from James's goal. So based on that, the injuries, the need for players in lots of positions, there are problems. We're only 3 games into a season, so it's not all doom and gloom, but you know what needs changing. But the chairman and the manager are miles apart. I wouldn't worry much about the CEO isn't saying anything. It's what the club does, not what the club says. It's what they do. Don't worry about the messaging. It's what they do. And right now they need to recruit players if they want us to compete. If they don't want us to compete, fine. This is what you've got. You've got injuries. Bristol City always have injuries for some reason. Conditioning must be a problem with conditioning. Some of it you could attribute to bad luck, but we have lots of long-term injuries which must ruin plan A, B, C, and D. The players aren't of a good enough quality to in those 3 games to do anything, and this is what you've got. You want to change it? That'll take money. Don't do it? Well, then fine.
To phrase,
could be
we
left
are where we are.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that. You could be left with a shitstorm where you lose. You don't. I mean, we don't look like we can win at home. Players who haven't scored for 20 games in outfield play, it points to a season of struggle unless players are brought in now, because we only got one. We got 2 transfer windows. We got 10 days to make a difference.
Well, we got 10.
To train.
We got 10 days, and I mean, this is a vital time. It's a vital 10 days.
You want us to compete. If you don't want to make it easy, fine. Just let Pearson get on with it. You've got a manager who's not very upbeat, who can't seem to inspire the players. Like Neil said, some of the qualities seem to be sucked out of players. You've got all of those problems, and you just want things to carry on the way they are, where nobody seems to get it. I just see real problems at the moment. That is worrying.
I mean, Neil,
big
final question for you. I mean, 12 days less of the transfer window. 2 tough away games. I think Hull won at Blackburn yesterday, Swansea away. Never going to be easy against them, no matter who's their manager. And then a tough Carabao Cup second round tie against Norwich. By the time we get to lunchtime, mid-afternoon on September the 2nd, we know what we'd hope for between now and then, but it could look pretty bleak, couldn't it, in 12 days' time, on the field and off it?
Well, I think, to be honest, Dave, it's probably benefiting us that the next 2 games are away from home, actually. If we had another home game and it followed on from the Preston Birmingham, I think the pressure would be on us to actually put those results behind us. And as the others have said, there doesn't seem to be much energy with regards to change at the moment. That when I listen to Pearson on the radio, it seems to be like, well, we're just playing all right. We're just not making the right decisions or making the right pass. And I'm thinking, you're seeing a different game to me. The 2 away games, who thought that we would go to Millwall and get a result?
Yeah.
So it may well be actually that, we go to Hull on that Friday night, we keep it tight, we don't concede, and then we have I'm going to second guess this here. Maybe we have a long throw and we throw it into the box and it bounces around and we get a tap in. Who knows at the end of the day? But I think, I think the next 2 away games, either we come out of that, and it's strange, isn't it? Because like Mark said, 3 games into a season, 1-1 drawn, 1 lost one. And yet all of us, and collectively, you can see on the forums, everybody's like,
Oh, it's meltdown.
Houston, we have a
It's meltdown.
Houston, we have a bit of a Houston, we have a bit of a pro.
Got the happy clappers out there saying, "Oh, it's early days yet."
I don't think it's necessarily, David, the results. It's the way we're playing.
It's the performances, absolutely.
It's the performances. It's not the results. And I think some people forget that we did not finish last season very well.
No.
That
was only our third home defeat yesterday this calendar year. The previous two being against Man City and Burnley, but. No, it's the manner. It's the manner. You don't mind losing, but you can lose well.
If you're only going to generate one or two chances a game, you need your strikers to be so clinical that we take that chance. Yeah. And when they're not, it's just a boring nothing game, isn't it? Like we had at Preston when the first half an hour that I sent that screenshot to you, and there were actually nothing happened. No corners, no shots, no nothing for each team. And you're just like, you're getting big crowds in and people's expectations are there. Yeah. And you've got to manage those expectations. And ultimately, if you're putting a poor product on there, on the field, and it's poor at the moment, isn't it, as a product?
People won't come. And you'll get lots of exits like we had yesterday.
What was the crowd yesterday?
23,000.
Was it 22?
22, I think.
22,300, I think it was. Ian, I mean, just to wrap up.
I've got to go, Dave. Thank you very much.
Yeah, see you next week. See you next time. Yeah. Say
hello to Mrs. Neil.
Let's get rid of Neil on there. There we go. He's gone. There we go. We can chat for a little bit longer. Ian, 12 days to go, right? You said 4 signings. I said it ain't going to happen. But, 12 days, 3 games, good to me would be 2 points, 2 draws away from home and progression into the Carabao Cup 3rd round. Yeah. And then we got a break. But, this is the next 12 days could shape our season. And not just because of the 3 games, it's the transfer piece that is the season shaper, isn't it? Yes? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think we need a statement from the club on what we're going to do and where we're going. Because if I'm a Bristol City player, let's say I'm Zach Viner, and all I hear are statements about how we've cut the wage bill and everyone's taking credit for it. The manager clearly stating, well, I've been told what's available, and even if we sell Scott, we won't go on a spending spree and won't do this. First of all, if I'm Zach Viner, I'm thinking, can't see much ambition here. Yeah. It's all right talking about, I get fed up with hearing about the stadium and the HPC. That's not going to get you promoted. Bournemouth got promoted to the Premier League, and I think at the time, one end of their ground was a blooming car park.
Yes, it was.
So, the facilities don't get you promoted. Yes, if you're selling it as a business and you've got £150 million worth of assets, and somebody wants to buy that, fantastic. But please don't keep talking about that. It's about what you do on the field. And if you look at the teams in the Premier League, you've got Bournemouth, you've got Brentford. They're not massive clubs.
Well, Brighton. Look at Brighton. All 3 of us have been to the Withdean, and that was an absolute. They were in.
Yeah, I haven't been to. Oh, yeah, to the Withdean. Sorry, I've been to the Withdean. I haven't been to the.
I've been to the Goldstone ground.
The point I'm making, Dave, is we need an unequivocal statement. If they come out on Monday and say, no, there'll be no more business done in the transfer market. If we get injuries, we're going to play the academy lads. At least everybody can say, well, all right, you've made the statement. We know where we are. And people who haven't got season tickets and people that have can say, I buy into that or I don't buy into it. I won't go. Now, at that point, everybody knows where we are. At the moment, we're thinking, I'm saying we need to sign 5 players because I believe we do. You're saying you've got no chance. We're probably, if I was a betting man, I think we might bring in 2. Yeah. But we might lose Zach Viner because if we get a bid and it's of a reasonable number, they'll sell him because he's not going to sign a new contract, and that's the policy.
Well, he's not going to sign a new contract based on what he's been offered now, right? Whereas actually, to give him what he wants.
But Dave, we've had 6 months to sort out Zach Viner's contract.
Yeah, I know.
So That's
I know,
what.
but nobody's come
what-
for him yet. You've got to bear in mind as well, Messrs. Hannah, Masengo and Callas, they had contracts. Nobody's battering the door down to sign either of them at the moment.
No, they're
Well,
not.
there's no. I mean, isn't it? I mean, there's 12 days to go. A cheeky bid. They only have to. He's not going to sign a new contract. They've had longer because we triggered the 1 year extension to his contract. It wasn't down. It wasn't down to Zach. The club aren't going to offer any more. We got a shortage of defenders. He's in a good bargaining position because he's basically saying, his agent is saying, is offer more money and I'll consider it. The club say no. That's a standoff that they was going to win. So if a club make an adequate bid, then City might take it. But the trouble is, if they did, who have we got? Who have we got to come in? We're short of defenders.
Mark, surely with Zach, right? If Zach was on $4,000 a week and we've offered him 8, right? Zach was on 4 and his new contract is 7. All right. So that's still a 75% increase on where he was. But a going rate, he's being offered 11. No, he's being offered, let's call it 11 grand. It's all speculation. He's been offered 11 grand a week by Southampton to sit on their reserve side, right? To sit on their bench, probably, because he won't be a first pick for them, right? The cost of replacing Zach just by bringing in a player with a transfer fee and offering him 10 and he might stay, that's offering him 10 grand a week is better than going out and buying another player and having to pay him probably 8 or something like that.
You think so, and both club and player are entrenched. But having lost about 3 or 4 players, we lost Callas, Baker and Closer last season. We decided to pay off Closer's contract. Baker was still on the books, although he basically retired, about a few months in. And then Callas is gone as well. We've lost all those players, and plus Atkinson's long-term injury. The only player we got to bring in really is Rafael Arroyo. That's it. Otherwise, we play players out of position. So we don't play players in their natural position. We haven't got anything left.
I have to say with Arroyo that I think he's worth giving a chance in the team, and I think.
Well, you probably see him. You could see him against Norwich. That gives us a chance against Norwich. I'm not bothered with the Norwich game, but it gives you a chance to play Arroyo as centre back, and then you can play Ephraim Yeboah from the start. It's Knight the better right back, or a centre back, or Leadsom. You could play one of those two in the right back position, couldn't you? So you could do that.
I'm saying, what tells you that Arroyo? Are you going on Arroyo's pre-season performance?
I'm just going on his pre-season, because
which was let's be honest, which was against Nits. Second.
All right. I'm trying to be.
But you could play him against Norwich.
Club need to say one way or the other if that's what we're going to do, right? So let's say, for example, Rob Dick is suspended against Hull. I'm telling you now, Pearson will bring Campering into left centre back.
Yes, he will,
and he'll play Roberts at left back. Now, if he's got faith in Arroyo, who, by the way, he didn't play from the start against Oxford, and he could, right? If he's got that much faith, why isn't he playing? Knight LaBelle's a centre back, but he can also play right back. Harry Leeson isn't actually in the first team squad, but he's still there. And bearing in mind, from the guys we had on the bench, 2 of them played 90 minutes against Peterborough in a cup game on Friday night. So whether Pearson's trying to prove a point, because the club put the wrong tweet out to start with, didn't they? And Wales weren't in the squad. So everybody got on Twitter and went ballistic, said, oh no, not another injury. Where's Nahki Wells? Next minute, that tweet's been deleted and there's a one with Wells in the squad. Now, we're talking about Wells he's our best chance of scoring a goal with Tommy out. And you're then telling me, well, he hasn't scored an open play for 20 games. So the club either have to say, right, we know we need to strengthen. We are going to go out and strengthen. Okay, we're doing our best, beavering away behind the scenes. And these are the play, and then go out and bring in those players that we need.
Yeah.
If they don't, then we've got no option, if players get injured, than to go with the academy lads. And if that fails, and we get relegated, all the people who are happy clappy about Nigel Pearson and the club and the HPC and the academy, all of those have got to say, right, yeah, I accept that. And we'll try and get back again next year.
No,
we'll lose 12, 13 million quid financially for a year, which Stephen won't be pleased about. So there's some big decisions to be made. And the ones we're making now, as you quite rightly said, could shape our entire season.
Yeah.
And,
you look at a team like Sunderland last season. They lost 2 big players in January, in Ross Stewart with an injury in the FA Cup game, and then Ellis Sims went back to Everton. But they were still able to bring in Joe Gelhardt to some extent and another couple of players, and they were competitive enough to get into the playoffs because that's what they wanted to do. We need to replace players for other reasons just to compete in this division and perhaps survive.
Mark, it is. I say I went into the pre-season, and this is season 57 for me. How many times? But I actually felt a bit about it, and I'm sat here at the moment. Yeah, I'm pissing my bed. Let's put it like that, because and Nigel, it's his 60th birthday tomorrow. By the way, I saw Nigel. He was in Scoozy Restaurant in Clevedon on Monday night with a tall bloke who wasn't a player. But anyway, that's by the by.
I wouldn't keep him more then.
No, it wasn't Kiefer Moore. Nigel's 60 tomorrow. Nothing's going to happen managerial-wise, even if we lost the next 3 games, I don't think. I think the key thing is what we do in the transfer, because Ian's repeated what I said. The next 12 days will shape our season, because, we've got these long-term injuries. I don't think we're going to get relegated. I think we got enough quality in the squad not to, because people will get fit. We'll probably finish the season strongly. I'll say this now, I don't think Nigel Pearson will be here beyond the end of this season. That's the situation. I think, if we have another season where the way it's looking at the moment, we're not in for a 10th to 14th finish season. And I know I'm saying this 3 games in. I think we're into a 14th to 18th season based on performances, and I might modify my view if we have some.
But the problem is what you're doing is, and we do this every season. It was because of FFP. We were reliant on teams losing points. You're suddenly looking down and you're saying, which 3 teams are a lot worse position than us?
Yeah.
Let's perm 3 teams now that are worse than us.
We can do that. I can pick 2 straight away. Sheffield Wednesday, QPR for starters. Yeah,
but you're doing that. You don't. Why do you want to do that? It's
that's
crazy,
not progress, is it? That is not progress. Full stop. Just final question to both of you. Ian, do you have a birthday wish for Nigel? Say happy birthday, Nigel. By the way. Over to you, Ian.
Happy birthday, Nigel. By the way, the performances in the first 3 games of the season have been poor. We wouldn't have scored yesterday if we'd have played until midnight. You need to go out and sign some players, mate. Otherwise, you're going to lose your job.
All right, that sounds good. Mark, happy birthday, Nigel. What are you going to say? What's the and, by the way?
Happy birthday, Nigel. I hope you have a wonderful day. Try smiling, but not in the way that it might make you look like a serial killer.
All right, everybody. Look, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't watched it live, you can see what ugly mugs we've got. Faces for radio, as the phrase goes. But as I say, we'll be back with a review of Hull on Saturday morning, and this and that will be available on all the Podbean platforms within 4 hours of the live recording.
And good luck to the Lionesses.
And good luck to the Lionesses.
Great luck to the Lionesses.
Yeah, here they go. Here we go.
Now there is a